Welcome to the Women's Sanctuary, the podcast about tending the soul of women, sisterhood, and the rise of the sacred feminine. I'm your host, Arlia Hoffman. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is Arlia. I'm thrilled to be back with you today. This is the Women's Sanctuary. And it's designed to be a safe, holy space where women can gather, share their stories of transformation and how they do their work in the world. We also talk about caring for the body and soul and just living the most authentic life we can. So welcome. My guest today is something I've been talking about and I promised was coming. It's a long-standing friend of mine, Stacey Shulman, and we met years ago. And she was, you were at a fair, a holiday fair, talking about your yoga work, and I just was immediately drawn to the work that she does. And then we had a recorded conversation, which I have no idea whatever happened to that, but it was a great conversation about yoga. And I've followed her ever since. And I feel like, if I were a yogini, like a yoga teacher, she and I would just be like totally in the same space. As it is, we're just in kind of, sister spaces, if you will. And so let me introduce you to her. Stacey Beth Shulman is a certified yoga teacher. She's a gentle activist, subtle disruptor, intuitive creatrix, and deep sea diver, meaning SEE. She uses her superpowers of compassionate intimacy to create brave spaces for people of all shapes, sizes, abilities, and genders to experience joyful movement, restful stillness, and attuned eating with pleasure and delight. I mean, I'm all over that. A native of Atlanta, Stacey enjoys art, music, cooking, and reading. And her website is curvyyogini.com, and we'll say more about that as the show goes on. Welcome, Stacey.
Hi, Arlia. I'm so glad to be here.
Thrilled to have you. As I was just telling you, we reconnected just recently because you posted about something a new piece of your work, or an expanding piece of your work. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like, again, our work is in parallel because I've always kind of personally been into like mindful or conscious eating or careful eating or just watching my physical well-being. But in the last year, gotten really more present with it and focused on it. And it's kind of taking over my life. Just the sense of, how can I be the healthiest, the most aligned with my body and what it wants and its own native wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, you were talking something about body trust certification and Be Nourished and diet culture. So I thought this was a great opportunity for us to get together and find out, what you're doing and your perspectives, and have a conversation for people for whom this is important to share some ideas. So tell me what you're up to.
Oh my gosh, what am I up to? I'm up to so many different things. It's always something new, I think. But when I think that Facebook post was about divesting from diet culture and the intersections of diet culture and really so many other aspects of our lives, how diet culture is really insidious and weaves its way into so many things. And so, so I did a training with with two women who, Dana and Hillary, who were at the time, their organization was called Be Nourished. And now it is the Center for Body Trust. And the training, the training was called Body Trust Certification. And really, I think the nutshell of all of this is that our culture teaches us not to trust our bodies, right? Yeah, yeah. And we can even take that to, the political, right? That our government doesn't trust us to make decisions for our bodies, right? So, and that's so relevant right now. Yeah. And what attuned eating really is learning to trust your body's hungers, your body's desires, and to follow those cues, and as best as you can, because attuned eating also acknowledges that sometimes what the body, what we really want to eat is not readily available for various and sundry reasons, whether it's financially not available, whether it's geographically not available, whether just from a standpoint of time, it's not available, so then we learn to do the best we can with what we have. So it's really taking away a lot of the judgment around food, particularly as it relates to things like healthy food versus unhealthy food, and all of the privilege that comes with all of that, right? Yeah. And you also have to look at it from the perspective of, of culture and society. What does your culture say is delicious? What does your culture say is nourishing? What does your culture, hello cat, what does your culture say is, traditional food that may or may not be, a choice that someone else would make, again, for a lot of different reasons. So I am what I'm offering folks is a coaching based on the ideas of body trust combined with yoga philosophy and a little dose of 12-step thrown in there, just because. And it's really been a wonderful experience to work with folks.
Mm-hmm. So obviously you had to draw to that. How has it informed the personal way that you approach food?
I will tell you that it's completely changed the way that I look at food and the way that I experience food. But this is not a program that you do. It's not a book that you read and questions that you answer and then you've graduated, right? It's something that that I flow into and I flow out of. And as long as I can treat myself with compassion around that, and that's what I've learned to do. That's the other piece of this, is that I learned self-compassion. And so that when I do flow out, I can observe myself with compassion. And as such, that allows me to flow back in. Diet culture is insidious, right? And unless I'm living under a rock there's just going to be no place that's really safe, right? So I'm always going to be swimming upstream against this idea that keeps popping up, right? And so So again, it's, I learn patience and I learn compassion as I, sometimes I'm in it, right? I am way in it. And that's the goal, is to be way in it, but then sometimes I'm out of it. And that's okay too. That's okay too.
Would you, so I, it sounds like you would define being in it as being attuned to what your body wants and being able to provide that for it. And then being out of it, out of attunement, maybe might be defined as eating what's convenient or being pulled in by the culture telling you this is something you want, and it may not actually be what your body wants. Is that what you're saying?
So yes, so being in it really is being attuned, right? Mm-hmm. Being in the moment, being able to understand what my body is asking for, and being able to fulfill that need, right? So being out of it is more about being in self-doubt, right? I like chocolate, right? I don't want to say most people, a lot of people like chocolate, right? And there's a lot of stuff that's attached to chocolate, right? If we think about that piece of chocolate, a piece of chocolate can be so many things. It can be delight. It can be a celebration. It can be a reward, and those are just a few of the things that it can be, right? It can be a flavor I really, really want. And that chocolate can be self-destruction, right? It can be, what else? It can be all kinds of it can be self-destruction. It can be negative. It can be punishment, right? There's a lot of things that chocolate can be. And so being attuned to the chocolate is saying, hey, this is something that I want. I'm going to eat, I'm going to eat in an amount that's satisfying to me, and then move on. If I'm out of attunement, it's, I'm feeling rebellious. I'm feeling bad. I'm going to eat some chocolate, makes sense.
Yeah. I'm being bad today. I'm going to have a piece of chocolate cake. Yeah. That kind of belief system. Yeah,
exactly.
Ooh, that takes some work. I mean, because I've been there, but it takes a lot of work to get to that place where you can see the cultural overlays, but you can also sense what's true for your body and make that choice, and then know why you're making the choice. There's a lot there.
Exactly. And it really does, like, it it goes beyond just like being bad, right? It's the whole, I'm making a healthy choice. I'm making an unhealthy choice, things like that. And how the idea of health being this sort of moral thing, right? That diet culture wants us to believe that, if we're healthy, then we're morally superior, right? And what does healthy look like? Well, healthy looks like thin, and it looks like fit, and it looks like a diet of only, vegetables and maybe some meat, and like, it's taking, for me, attunement is taking the moral judgment out of it.
Right.
And allowing food to be all the things that it can be, besides calories in, calories out. Because if it was just calories in, calories out, it would be a whole different ballgame.
Yeah. It'd be like, what kind of gas are you putting in your car? It would be that simple of a transaction.
Right. And think about it. There's different cars that take different kinds of gasoline. Some cars take diesel. Some cars take unleaded.
They're the cars that are, quote, better because they're electric. I mean,
exactly. Some cars don't even take gas, right? And so, like, even that we have to, even cars, there's no one size fits all.
Mm-hmm.
But diet culture wants us to think that there is one size that fits everybody and that there's one body type that fits everybody. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that, and so that's what I work so hard to divest from.
Yeah, that's what I love, because that's been one of my biggest lessons in the last year is I've definitely been in the diet culture, and yet having to like figure out where the stories are that aren't true for me, and peeling back the moral judgments of that. But then I think the biggest piece for me has been realizing that the culture is, it's the water we're swimming in. So it's so pervasive that we don't even realize that maybe most of what we're eating is because we've been told it's either good for you or yummy and you deserve it, whatever the story is, or if it's quote bad for you and you shouldn't be eating it, but you can just sneak some in here and there and do like all that crap. About all the moral judgment is so pervasive. I just posted an episode last week, and I've been threatening to do this. I haven't quite done it yet, but I'm going to I'm going to spin an episode on potatoes, because it occurred to me how pervasive in our culture, at least in the American culture, Western culture, is potatoes. I mean, what is Thanksgiving without mashed potatoes? Or what kind of person are you if you don't eat French fries? I mean, like all of that.
Yeah.
Because it's if you're American, that's what you do. You eat potatoes. Right. So there's just one little example to me of that I've had to work with of getting back to, but what does my body want?
Right. What does my body want? And sometimes my body wants potatoes.
Yeah. And just because I want it or don't want it means nothing about anybody else's journey. Right.
Just because I choose it or don't choose it, realistically speaking, it's nobody's business what I'm eating or not eating. But but I get calls on the regs from my insurance company that wants me to, my health insurance company that wants me to sign up for their health coaching. Well, what is their health coaching going to do? Well, that allows my insurance company to monitor my eating habits through their health coaching. And so then they can decide, that gives them even more information to decide how much they want to charge me for insurance.
Or because, oh my God,
exactly. Or what they'll pay for, because, oh my gosh, she ate potatoes.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many places we could go with that, particularly in the current climate.
Exactly. And it all goes back to trust. Trusting that I can feed myself, that I can care for myself, that I can, if I am responsible for other people, that I can care for them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I call it trusting the innate intelligence of the body. And so then the work becomes really, as you say, getting attuned to that, knowing, understanding it, and then the other piece is the compassion to just flow in and out of that attunement. I love that.
Yeah, and to do the best you can with what you have, because again, not everybody has the same resources, and it's really important to honor that. A lot of people think that intuitive eating is, just like a free-for-all, eat whatever you want, whenever you want to, if you want, if you want it, just eat it, well, not everybody has that security.
Yeah.
Right. And safety and privilege to just, eat what they want, when they want, when, wherever, whenever they want to. I'm grateful that I have a lot of privilege, to do that. But I also have to acknowledge that, again, that not everybody does. So does that limit what I eat? It doesn't necessarily limit what I eat, but but there's things that I do, like I make regular donations to the food bank, and I bring food to the free 99 fridge, and so, and I don't do it, what don't I do? I don't do it because it's for any sort of moral superiority. I do it because that's a way that I balance out the fact that I have the ability to pretty much get what I want when I want it. And I acknowledge that not everybody else does have that ability.
Yeah. Yeah, we could spend the rest of our lifetimes talking about how to fix the food deserts and make all sorts of foods available to everybody who wants it.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, let's shift gears a little bit and talk more about your journey. Tell us about how you got here, how you got to this point in life, and your path.
Oh, wow. So I grew up in a pretty traditional family with a mom and a dad and a younger brother in a fairly mainstream, not dominant religious culture, but one that's readily recognizable. And food was just always, food is threaded through my religious culture, my upbringing. It just, food was so many different things, and it was really super confusing. My mom was a Weight Watchers person, and was very conscious of her body and her weight, and was very concerned that my body wouldn't be of the standard that she would have liked. Right?
Oh, my mom too. I recognize that.
Yeah. And literally right out of the gate in my baby book, the one of the questions in my baby book was, what was the first thing you thought of when you saw your new baby? And my mom's response that she wrote was, chubby but cute. And I was just like, whoa.
Wow.
Like right out of the gate, she is concerned about the size of my body. I'm like, I'm a newborn, right? I should have a little extra on me, And so, but that was, that was what was threaded through my life, was that, that idea that I could always be better, can always be thinner. What do we need to do for that? And, there was a lot of rationalizing around food. So food was nutritious, but it was also, there just was so much enmeshment, right? Yeah. Like, how can you be hungry? I'm not hungry. It was like, well, but I am, so that was all those messages that I got very early on about, how, is this food really worth eating? Here, let me tell you, oh, I don't think it's worth eating. You really shouldn't eat it either. Those kinds of things. I didn't have a lot of autonomy around food. And bless my mom's heart, she was doing the best she could. And it was her desire to instill in me, the values that she felt were really important. And those values were, based on the way that you looked, so that you looked attractive to men, so that you would get married and you would have beautiful children and she would be a beautiful grandmother and,
all the whole story. Yeah.
Right. The whole story. Right. And hilariously enough, none of that happened for me. And I'm super happy in my life. But it took a long time to get here. And all of that is to say that what I really got out of all of that message was self-doubt, right? I grew up doubting myself and doubting my choices. And it took a long time for me to come around to the fact that I own my body and I can make choices for myself. And the way that it all came about really was finding my yoga mat and finding my yoga practice, which taught me to trust that my body could hold itself up. There were particular poses. One of them, Warrior One, which is a standing lunge pose. So I may have my left foot forward and my right foot back. I might bend my left knee and put a lot of weight through my left foot and then raise one or both arms, right? That's a synopsis of Warrior One, if you're not familiar. And to do that, to feel my body hold me up was a really important lesson for me, to learn that I can trust that when I put my foot forward, when I step forward, that I've got my own back, right? That I'm not falling over. I may wobble and I could fall over, but it would be okay. Yeah. Or I could choose to stand next to the wall or use a chair for support, things like that. Yoga was one of the first things that brought me into my body. Then another piece of it for me was to get into 12 steps, and particularly to get into Al-Anon. Because the isms that I grew up with, I don't want to point any particular person out because that's not nice and it's not fair. But the isms that I grew up around, right? And the isms that are present in our culture, particularly, if nothing else but perfectionism is such an ism, right? And it's such a symptom of where we are, so learning through the 12 steps, through Al-Anon, to let go of perfectionism, and to take the slower, easier road, was really, really helpful. And then once I kind of got my bearings about myself, then I could really look into where is all this coming from, right? Like, what's the biggest knot I can untangle? And the biggest knot that I felt like I could untangle was my relationship to food, and how I used food to either boost my mood or calm myself down, or various and sundry other things, right? How I related to food. So I just started doing a lot of research and reading a lot of books. And I don't know how I stumbled upon, at the time, Be Nourished, but poof, there it was. And I was like, these people are talking about what I've been talking about for a long time, only they're talking about it even more and even more deeply and even more wide-ranging. And so it was so exciting to read their website and to eventually become involved in such a way that I could do the training and do the work and be able to share it with other people. So that's kind of my story.
That's beautiful. I mean, that is such deep work. You know, as someone pointed out recently, you can walk away from some addictive substances, but you always got to eat.
Exactly.
And so that relationship is always there.
Right. There's some things that, like I don't need alcohol. Whether I drink alcohol or not, that's not my issue. That's not the issue, right? It's, it's not going to, it's not something that sustains me, but food sustains me. And it gets really tangled when we think about sustenance and nurturing and, and balance and all the other things.
Yeah. You talked about self-doubt a lot. How do you work with self-doubt?
How do I work with self-doubt? I feel it. And I really have to talk myself through it. I'm pretty good at coaching myself. And a lot of times it's talking myself through it. I'm not a great journaler. I've never been a big writer. I don't blog too much. I always aim to blog, right? Everyone should have a blog. But I think in pictures. And so writing is a little bit more difficult. But I talk it out. I talk it out with other people. Sometimes I just have to talk it out in my own head. Sometimes I work it out with a collage. And it's largely going back to my spiritual practice, which is the 12 steps, which teaches me about trusting the universe, trusting that the universe has my back.
Ooh, I've been doing a lot of that work lately too.
Yeah.
Elizabeth Gilbert was on the Glennon Doyle podcast recently.
I love her.
Love her too. She had been absent for a while, doing her own work, and was talking about getting back into the 12-step programs. And I loved what she said. She was talking about 12 steps, and she said she really had to redefine her relationship with her higher power. And it was very complicated and enmeshed and entangled in all her, her upbringing. But I loved what she said when she said, "The God of my understanding is not the God of your fathers."
Right.
She had to create. I think she asked her sponsor, "How do I create a God in an image I can?" I don't know if I can or something about whether if I feel like I have the right to create God in an image that works for me. And she was told, you have to. In order for you to be able to relate to something, it's got to be something that is in your own imagination and your own creation, in order to put a face on this creative force in the universe. And that was really helpful for me because similar to you, I was raised in an ism. With a whole set of beliefs and a whole set of pictures about, what the creative force that sustains us is or isn't. And so to that actually has been part of my journey in the last year. Is like, there's got to be something. Yes, I am relying on the wisdom in my own body, but then there's also this force that supports, sustains, and inspires me, right? And to be able to create a relationship with that in a way that in an image that is useful. For me is important.
Well, I used to think that there wasn't enough God to go around, and that God was sort of this Woody Allen character up in the sky in an office, piled
that's already problematic.
Right. Exactly. Right. But piled high with, books and papers and, and there's computers everywhere and God can't
So he was too busy.
Yeah, he was too busy. God was too busy. And when horrible, tragic things happened, it was because God just had his back turned, right? And couldn't reach the couldn't reach that computer fast enough. And oops, And I've learned since that for me, God is not a person, but God is what I call blue, benevolent, loving, universal entity. And so when I see the blue sky, that's God. And when I see the blue ocean, that's God. And when I see, when I hear the birds singing, that's God. And it's so hilarious to me that God is so much in nature because I'm so indoorsy. Like,
not a nature girl.
I am there has to be a bathroom within 50 feet of me at all times, right? And I prefer air conditioning and all of that. And so yeah, but that's who God is for me. And when I can lean back on the universe and know that whatever choice I'm making is made with the support of this benevolent, loving, unlimited entity, whatever choice it is, whether it's a carrot or a candy bar, in that moment, it's the right choice.
I love that.
Yeah. Thanks.
Because the benevolent, loving,
unlimited
entity, I would argue, probably doesn't care which one you're eating.
Right. The benevolent, loving, unlimited entity only wants that I'm satisfied and that I'm safe. And that, hungry to me feels very unsafe. And so, so to be satisfied, to not feel hunger, and there's also different kinds of satisfaction, right?
Oh, yes.
There's, I can have eaten a meal that was satisfying because it was all the flavors that I wanted, right? It was all the textures and the flavors and in the right place where I didn't have distractions and, and whatever. It was, it was the perfect meal. Or it was whatever I could, grab and, and eat just so I'm not hungry, right? There's like those two ends of the spectrum. And then there's everything in between.
Yeah. I want to come back to the attuned eating. What is it? Can you offer something to help our listeners begin to practice that? So how would they begin to practice what it means to be attuned and aligned with in their eating? Attuned eating,
sure.
Is what you call it.
Yeah. So really, to me, what it all comes down to is interoception. And isn't that a crazy word?
That's a new one. You'll have to
so
say more about that.
Sure. interoception, interoception.
There will be a test later.
Yes. is decisions we make based on what it feels like inside our body. So there are a lot of, our culture is very exteroceptive. Exteroception is decisions that are made based on cues outside of the body, right? And in other words, triggers. So, but one of my favorite exteroception illustrations is, when you go to the movie theater and you walk in and the first thing you smell is popcorn and you hear it.
Yes.
Right. It's like popping and already you're imagining like the butter and the salt, and it doesn't matter if you are.
Okay. I'm already having a moment here.
Right. Exactly. Like you're already having a moment. Right. or you're driving down the street. My mom's favorite was Hot Donuts Now from
Oh, yeah.
Krispy Kreme.
Yep.
And you're driving down the street and the hot sign is on. And then suddenly you're like smelling it and you're like, crossing 4 lanes of traffic because you've got to get there, right? Yep. That's exteroception. So interoception is feeling, is noticing what we feel like on the inside, and making decisions based on that. And that's a really hard thing to grasp.
Oh, it is.
But
it is hard.
Yeah. My suggestion is to check in with your body, and what is your body feeling? So is your body feeling, and you can even go through a list of like, because I'm the worst at like, where do you want to go for dinner, or what do you want to have for lunch? I don't know. What do you want? Where do you want to go?
Oh,
right? Like,
yes.
It's
always that decision. Like, really? Do I have to decide?
Right. Like I have to feed myself.
Yeah.
Oh, right. But so you go through the list and you think about, okay, well, do I want something crispy or do I want something soft? Do I want something hot or do I want something cold? Even like that would be, even that takes us to a place of interoception, right? Where we first feel, oh, I feel hungry. Well, what does it feel like when you feel hungry? And then, once you establish, okay, I'm hungry, then do I want something sweet? Do I want something salty? Is it, how much time do I have to eat? If I have a long time, am I hungry? If I have a long stretch of time to cook, is it that I'm like so hungry that I can't wait for, the chicken to be done? Do I need to go out and find some chicken someplace else? Do I need to, oh, look, there's tuna fish. That's really easy to open and make really quickly. So so going back to what it is that your body, what you're feeling in your body, and then maybe what is it that you are really craving, without attaching a story. And that's a really hard thing to do. But if you can try and do it, even just like a little bit, right? Every little bit, it's like stringing a pearl. Every time you have one of these experiences, you put a pearl on your necklace, and eventually you go from one pearl to a full pearl necklace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a baby muscle, beginning to exercise that muscle and strengthen it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what happens if we drop a pearl?
It's okay.
Yeah. How do we exercise that self-compassion?
You come back to the fact that we are all human. Again, it's not calories in, calories out. We're not robots, right? We're human beings. And in that we are being, and part of being means that sometimes we're going to do it quote unquote right. And sometimes we're going to do it quote unquote wrong. And it's coming back around to that benevolent, loving, unlimited entity who doesn't see things in that black and white.
Yeah.
It's coming back to the present moment and saying, I did the best I could with what I had. Yeah.
That's absolutely true. Having that kind of self-compassion, looking back, because I have that same thought about the years I was not eating in attunement with my body, but I did the best I could with the information I had at the time.
Yeah.
But I also wanted to add, I kind of wanted to talk about what's the reward? What's the payoff for that level of work? For me, it becomes this feeling of more oneness with my body, more oneness with my entire being, that sense of autonomy and strength that, like, yes, there's a lot out there that's telling me what I can and should be doing, but I have a firmer hold on what I know of myself. And that feels really good to learn to become more deeply attuned to myself and know, usually from one moment to the next, what is actually, best for my body and what I want.
Yeah, the reward is really self-possession. It's really, it's a sense of feeling comfortable in my skin. And that is so important to me.
Yeah.
Because growing up, I really can't remember a time that I felt fully comfortable in my skin. Freedom from self-judgment is everything.
Yeah.
There's a bumper sticker, the non-judgment day is near.
I love that.
And I love that.
Yeah.
Because it's really, it's freedom from feeling judged by myself and by everybody else.
Yeah.
And that's really to be exactly who I am in my body as it is in the moment. There's nothing more wonderful to me. There's nothing more rewarding than that.
I agree. I agree. To be at home with yourself.
Yeah. There's a Dr. Maya Angelou, there's a beautiful quote that I long, just as everyone else does, to be at home in my body. And to be at, wherever I am. And that to me is what it's all about. To give myself that gift is priceless.
Absolutely. I was just reminded of that poem I have somewhere about, the world will be saying, and it's not about food, but it's in general, the world will be saying, go here and do this and do this. And then, but really it's coming back home and saying, coming back home to your heart and saying, I'm here, but what's here?
Yeah.
And I think, that's just what we're talking about is another aspect of really being, as you said, self-possessed, being aware, being in tune with yourself, and finding that path, knowing how to get back home to yourself.
Nothing is more, for me, it's a sense of relaxation, right? That I'm not struggling, that I'm able to soften. And that softness is just, to me, that softness is everything. We live in a world that's so hard.
Yeah.
That's
priceless.
Yeah.
Oh, I love and self-compassion for yourself and being able to be soft. That's all. Yeah. That's so juicy to me. That's a yearning of mine for sure. Stacey, thank you so much for this beautiful conversation. You have so much other work to offer that we didn't get to, but this was what was really, burning for me to talk about.
Absolutely. Thank you.
What, people want to know more about how you work with people, either through yoga and embodied practice and food, all of the above, sometimes all at once. Tell people how they can find out more about you and get in touch with you.
Yeah. So you can find me on the web at www.curvyyogini.com. So that's CURVYYOGINI.com. And there you'll get an idea of what I offer. And I work with folks in person. I also work with folks online. So if you are someplace other than where I am in Atlanta, you are welcome to connect with me online in the virtual world. I also, let's see, how else can you reach me? You can also find me on Instagram. I'm at Curvy Yogini. So I'm there, and I am Stacey Beth Shulman, SHULMAN on Facebook. So, and I'm open to folks friending me on Facebook. So yeah.
Perfect.
And that's actually where this conversation started. So
yes. And yeah, sometimes you are frequently the bright spot in my day if I check in on Facebook, because you've got a great little, Buddha doodle or meme or something. It's like, oh yeah, it's sometimes a reminder of self-compassion, or just to kind of laugh at the world or laugh at ourselves and have self-compassion. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. Well, this has been absolutely lovely, and I think that there is plenty more that we can talk about. So
absolutely. Yeah, we'll come back to this in the future for sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Join us next time. We'll to hear more women sharing their stories. We're going to continue this conversation with other guests around self-compassion and living in alignment with your body. If you enjoy these podcasts, please consider leaving a review on your favorite podcast platform. It helps people find us and helps our guests. For Stacey Beth and myself, thank you so much for joining us. I'm Arlia Hoffman, and this has been the Women's Sanctuary. We'll see you next time.